So, Chris, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. How are you doing?
Are you from Lisbon?
I'm not. Actually, I live in Madrid in Spain.
Okay, awesome. So, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what brings you to the Investor Summit.
So I'm Christopher Locke. I'm global head of program at South Summit. We're one of the largest event platforms for entrepreneurship and innovation around the world. We have large scale events with around 18 to 24,000 people in Spain, in Latin America, and also in Asia. We just launched our first edition in South Korea last September. So excited. We're on our road to be on 5 continents in 2 years. So it's super exciting. And our mission is sort of to connect founders, investors, industry leaders, knowledge experts, connect their whole ecosystem at a global scale, help them innovate, help them boost their businesses, and help connections happen.
Awesome. So, you must be exposed to so many different ideas from different countries, different regions. So, what kind of trends are you seeing out there that maybe our listeners could get some value out of?
Absolutely. It's very interesting to see differences between different regions. So Europe has its own identity in its ecosystem. Maybe it's a bit more conservative than the US. Then we see Latin America, which has it's a huge emerging market with lots of startups, lots of unicorns rising. And something that's very interesting that we're trying to empower as well is there's a lot of migration or growth from startups in emerging markets to more consolidated markets. For example, I grew up in Latin America, I grew up in Argentina. There's a lot happening in Latin America, but there's lots of startups with lots of potential there that don't have the context that exists in Europe or in the US. And we're trying to build bridges between these different regions and connect startups to Spain and Portugal, for example, that has become sort of a soft landing for lots of these companies that want to grow somewhere else, that don't find the economic or socioeconomic factors they need to grow the investment, the capital, and they end up sort of coming to Spain. And we help sort of connect those bridges between Asia, Latin America, the US, Europe, and we're scaling to that. So a bit of the trends that we also see is, especially in investment, is more purposeful investment. So we're seeing, so I spend basically my entire year talking to founders and investors and anyone in the industry, and it's really interesting to see there's this trend to go to more purposeful investments, to more purposeful startups. So the magical, mystical unicorn that magically grows really fast, makes a lot of money, that's transitioning into companies that don't want to, break the unicorn 1 billion mark. They want to actually scale more sustainably. They don't want to break things and go fast. They want to take care of their talent, of their people. They want to build a culture of growth, and they want to also create impact in their ecosystem, in their environment, in their people. So we're seeing this trend for startups that are not just focused on profits, not just focused on their solution, but are actually seeing their solutions in a more holistic perspective. So what does this mean? This means companies that are not just chasing economic growth, but also sustainability goals, also social impact. And I think that's a very interesting trend across AI. Everyone's talking about tech and AI, but how are we using these new technologies to create a unified impact, a more holistic impact? And it's funny you asked. Our concept for next year for South Summit, actually in Madrid, is in motion. It's actually about how are we setting our ecosystem in motion? How are we combining? How are we allowing different perspectives to have conversations and nurture each other? And for example, you could have someone from health overlapping with someone from hospitality, and now you have this new business opportunity. But we just need to go beyond and sort of stretch our minds behind that status quo. That's what we try to do, and that's what I try to do in conversations we bring to our company.
That's really fascinating because the opportunities are endless, right? You know, that's just one example, health and hospitality, and I've never thought about the interaction between the two. But now you mention it, I've just thought about, three different
Exactly.
business ideas, right? And obviously that's just an idea, it doesn't mean much, but
Yeah.
when you have those experts together, actually in that environment with business people, with people who know how to launch a business, I think that's quite magical, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's also about collaboration. So what the collaboration between industries, between companies. So there's this need. So there's this difference between what we want to happen, but what's actually happening. For example, in corporate innovation, lots of companies could benefit from information and trends and even IP that different companies have. And this could sort of pursue a greater good. Of course, no one wants to share their trade secrets with someone else, but there are more and more opportunities, especially in events that we're doing, more opportunities to have more interactive sessions where people can actually share their ideas, their insights, where you can have a corporate talking to a startup, talking to a unicorn founder, talking to an investor about the same problem. And each one looking at it from a different perspective, different challenges, different opportunities. And I think we feel we're very strongly that that diversity of perspectives of lens and that diversity of different stages and moments and priorities helps for a much richer conversation and a much richer output that you can take. So I think that's also what we're trying to sort of encourage: more collaboration and more, yeah, and more cross collaboration, cross pollination between industries and regions as well.
And what's your biggest challenge to doing that? Because it sounds great, but I imagine there's loads of challenges. What's the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge, especially in events, is how do you put together a conversation that is not just everyone nodding and saying yes? How do you create a conversation that has just enough edge in the positive sense to have people going like, oh, that's interesting. You hadn't asked about it. I hadn't never thought about it that way. And that creates engagement that helps everyone in the audience sort of, oh, wow, he asked this question. Like, will that go here and there? I think sometimes the way we try to do that is make sure that the panel is overlapping between industries. So for an example, in the past, we've had maybe 8 to 10 different tracks at our big summits. What we're trying to do this year is have less tracks, bigger focus, that have more flexibility, but also allow more overlap. So this year we're going to have planet and sustainability. We're going to be talking about humanity and their digital now. We're going to be talking about tech horizons and then our ecosystem. And these overlap. So think about any industry. Think about mobility. Think about climate. You can look at that same solution or problem from different lenses, and you'll have different answers. So, for example, mobility. From a sustainability point, you could have a company talk about how they're pursuing the SDGs, how are they creating impact, how are they reducing emissions. But if you talk about from a tech standpoint, it could be how are they using AI to reduce, build new materials, to create autonomous vehicles. One single industry can be looked at from different lenses, different perspectives. And what we're trying to sort of empower in this cross collaboration or this cross tracks in our content is create conversations where you can have someone from hospitality and someone from healthcare in the same conversation, and they sort of have that back and forth. And the last thing that I would say on that is, I think we need more interactive sessions where it's not just someone on stage preaching or selling their idea to the audience, but where you can actually have, maybe also, you have to have a bit of both. You obviously need the inspirational conversations where you're like, wow, this guy's amazing, I want to do what he's doing. But you also have those smaller spaces where you have more interactive sessions and people can go back and forth and share ideas in a safe space and like, oh, wow, he talked about this, and sort of democratize ideas in a way. Because sometimes if you're a small startup sitting at a table with a unicorn, their idea, their voice, if they're very vocal of what they're doing, you'll be like, yeah, I'm a tiny unicorn. I have nothing to give to this conversation. But you do, because you're maybe working on a different solution and you saw something from a different perspective. So what we try to do is sort of foster that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. There's so much more I want to ask you, but we have got a limited time, unfortunately. But thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.